So I have a few questions here.
Okay.
Hopefully I could get through these questions.
Okay.
About law and about scriptures, most of them.
Okay.
All right. Our Torah speaks of Levirate marriage before the Torah was given. This was also a practice in the regions where Abraham came from. Can you elaborate on the cultural connections between the Sumerians and the Hebrews?
Well, absolutely. First and foremost, what we seldomly remember is that when we speak about Abraham coming from Ur, we are actually talking about the Sumerian city Uruk, spelled U-R-U-K. That is the Ur of the Bible or of the Torah. It's the Sumerian city Uruk. So Uruk is in Sumer. Abraham is not a native of Canaan. Abraham didn't grow up and was raised in the Jordan Valley. Abraham didn't take baths in the Jordan River. Abraham took baths in the Tigris-Euphrates River. Abraham, dare I say, is what we would call today a Sumerian. We have to remember as Hebrew Israelites that the term Hebrew begins with Abraham. So then you have to ask yourself, what was Abraham before the Creator called him a Hebrew? When we're talking about the term Sumerian, dare I remind you that we are talking about a Semitic term. Remember, the very people who coined the phrase are Akkadian, and the Akkadians are Semitic. And the term in the Akkadian tongue is actually Sumerian. And according to Samuel Noah Kramer, who is the leading Sumerologist of our era, he states on record that the term Sumerian is a name and designation of the Hebrews' earliest ancestor, Shem. And we know that the Asiatics that descend from Shem have their origins in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. So we have to remind people that before we see the Cushite tribes invade those areas coming from Africa, there was already an Asiatic strain of Shemitic people, with the leading forefather Shem dominating those regions and leaving and defining the signs of civilization. This is why Zion Lexx always talks about Sumer. I always talk about Sumer because the very people who I give credit to as birthing civilization are Semitic, are descendants of my ancestors. Mm-hmm. So when I speak with Kemetic people, I have to remind them that while Kemet may be old, even in Dr. Ben's words, saying that Kemet is the first civilization is like saying that a rabbit is a pigeon.
Even in Dr. Ben's words, saying that Kemet is the first civilization is like saying that a rabbit is a pigeon.
So when I say that Abraham is a Sumerian, I say that with full confidence. I say that with textual evidence, where our Torah itself says in Genesis chapter 12, what does it say? Matter of fact, they call me the meticulous guy now because of how I like to be meticulous. So let me pull it up on my phone real quick because I want to read it in real time, and I want you to listen to the language the Torah describes when it speaks about Abraham living in the region of Sumer. Genesis chapter 12 verse 1 reads, "And the Lord said to Abram, get out of your country, from your kindred, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you." The Creator called the region of Sumer Abraham's country, the land of his kindred or nativity. And he tells Abraham that you are going to go to a land that I will show you. That's the land of Israel. Right. That means that the children of Israel, the Hebrews, have a culture that does not begin in Canaan land. Our culture begins in the region where Abraham came from. So when we talk about levirate marriage as practiced in the earliest stages of our development as a people, when we're looking at the patriarchs, where we first see levirate marriage, especially when we talk about the event that happened with Judah and Tamar, right, which levirate marriage should have been practiced in that instance, right? the Torah wasn't even given yet. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right.
The Torah wasn't given until the era of Moses. Yet we're speaking about levirate marriage in the era of Judah and Tamar. Where did that come from? Well, I adjure you to open up the stele of Ur-Nammu, who's a Sumerian. And you can see levirate marriage detailed there. So are we saying that we're borrowing from Sumerians? No, we are reminding you that our earliest ancestors are called today in history books Sumerians. We call them in the Bible the descendants of Shem.
Hallelujah. Thank you for that. All right, in terms of the word Torah,
Okay.
many of us think of Torah as meaning something or having a particular definition.
All right.
What does the word Torah literally mean?
So I'm glad you asked me that question because I tend to deal with looking at meanings from a perspective of etymology, which is studying the root of a word, and also incorporating linguistics, right? Which is the whole corpus of language bases on a whole. So from an etymological point of view, there's two ways that we can look at the origin of the term Torah in order for us to exemplify its meaning for whatever it may be. Contrary to popular opinion, the literal definition of Torah is not law. Torah is synonymous with law, but the literal meaning is not law. As it is in Arabic and as it is in Hebrew, the term deen signifies law. In Hebrew, we're more familiar with deen as we use it in the sense of judging. But it also means law, especially when you're looking up the Aramaic source, which is the sister or kin language. Remember that Abraham came from Aramaic people. Remember that Abraham's descendants that are older than him are described as an Aramean. When Abraham goes and seeks a wife for his son, doesn't he tell his servant to go to his Aramean ancestors who are older than him? So I'm reminding you of the relationship between Aramaic and Hebrew, mind you. When we talk about Torah, we're looking at the root Tav, Wav, Resh, He. The first and most recognizable root is Ora. And the way that we make an easy correlation is by looking at Proverbs chapter 3, I believe it's verses 6 through 12, where it says Torah is light. Then as a person who studies Hebrew, you say, that's it right there. Not only is Torah, etymologically speaking, connected to the word Ora, which is the Hebrew word for light, but even in the Proverbs, the great wise man, King Solomon, says quite literally, Torah is light. Torah or. It says, Kiner mitzvah, for a lamp is a commandment. And then it says, We Torah or, and Torah is light. I believe, again, that's Proverbs chapter 3, 6. Kiner mitzvah, for a commandment is a lamp. We Torah or, and Torah is light. And there's a reason why, before I even give you or bring us to the definition of what Torah really means, that the great wise mind reminds us that Torah is light. I have a common sense question. What do we use light for?
To see.
That is the main property of light. To see or to guide in a direction. Note that the Torah self-describes herself in very real-time language. The Torah always speaks of following that straight and narrow path, which in Hebrew is a derek. Many of the times in the Torah, when referencing the laws of God, it speaks about that ancient path. But a path is leading you towards something in a specific direction. So contrary to the secular world, all roads do not lead to God. You got to get on that straight and that narrow path as defined by God. You see, we can't define our path to God. God defines that for us. This is the birth of religion. Religion is born when man defines how he's going to draw close to God. God already has on record a means to draw close to him, and he called that the Torah, which comes from a Hebrew word which means light, because it's going to guide you towards revealing who the Almighty is, who the Creator is, and what he would have and desire for you. What a lot of people miss when we talk about the analogy of Torah, which would ultimately bring us to understanding what the word Torah means, is pay attention to the language that the Torah uses to envisage a greater capacity or drive within us to get closer to the Creator. We are told as Hebrews that we are to put tzitziot on the four corners of our garment. And we are to place what? A cord of blue, which in Hebrew is techelet. Techelet. Now, I love roots. I love language. I love the Hebrew language. Why do we have to place a cord of blue on our tzitziot? That's just God's favorite color? Because if you're looking at the Torah from a psychoanalytical perspective, looking at the psychology within the text, you would say, this sounds like a man is speaking now. I get why you got to wear strings, because, it's something that you could visibly see. And as we know, back in the days, when a parent wanted their child to remember things, they would tie little strings around your hand or give you a chain to wear around your neck. The Torah told us to put 4 around our corners of our garments as a reminder. But what's this favorite color thing? What's this blue thing? That sounds like a man gave that to you. Well, this is God. God got a favorite. God created all 7 colors. And I say 7 because we know that there are 7 basic colors from which all colors stem from, right? So God created the 7 spectrums of color, right? So why does he say blue? Come on, God got a favorite color. Come on, this is how we know that y'all book is made up, man. No, this is how we know our book is deep. Because the word tekelet was used for a specific reason. We have another word for blue in Hebrew. It's chakol. That's the other or alternate word for blue. So we have to look at the meaning of tekelet in order to analyze why the Creator says put that shade of blue. Because chakol is more like a royal blue, whereas tekelet is what we call either deep sea blue, or in some instances it has been defined, and this is where I follow, as sky blue. So we know that in Psalms 119, in his brilliance, we see the great mind of King David, where he takes the Torah and expounds upon it for 176 verses.
Yes, he does.
This is the longest psalm. When I'm speaking with Christians who want to bring me in the book of Psalms to show me how great the mercy of God is and how I don't really need God's law anymore because, that was that old thing that we don't need to live by. It was so destructive. I remind them that the longest psalm is Psalm 119. And that's the psalm that expounds upon the entire Torah, right? And it does so beautifully. And when we get to, I believe it's the 96th verse, where it says, to every goal I have seen an end, but thy commandment exceeds limitation. The word for goal, G-O-A-L, is techelet. So the word techelet in Hebrew doesn't just mean blue, it means goal, G-O-A-L. You see, the Torah is a guide that leads us to the Creator. And the G-O-A-L, the goal of creation, is that man become one with God. Mm-hmm. And this is the reason why we have a cord of blue in our tzitziot. So when you study the language and immerse yourself in the culture, make no mistake about it, you come to understand that we are being guided. We are being instructed. This is deeper than just saying law. Listen, man makes laws. But only the designer of something can give an instruction. Only the creator of an app can tell you how it works. Only the creator of something can give you directions, instructions on how to own and operate it. Anybody can give laws. In fact, I could dominate you, come in your house, and give you laws. Our Creator gave us Torah, which is a guide and is an instruction manual. And as we see it used throughout the narrative of the text, it is always used in the connotation of being a guide or a set of instructions. The first thing that should tell you when you now hone in on that is that if the Torah represents a guide or instructions, obviously it's coming from the one who designed man. And this is the difference between us saying that we have instructions or a Torah coming from our Creator versus the world just saying they have laws. Well, I'm happy you have laws, but I want to remind you, your laws are man-made, just like your religion. Your laws are defining your path towards something. And in most cases, like our teachers taught us, if your religion have a born date where a man started it, it's a religion. If your religion can be dated, where the end of most religions start off with a man. He was born on a certain date, and then he has a death certificate. He died. Find me a religion that doesn't start with a man, that has a birth certificate and a death certificate. This is how we know we're dealing with religion. You see, but our Torah tells us that we know that we're not dealing with religion because what we have has no born date. And it has yet to been issued a death certificate, contrary to popular opinion. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Proverbs chapter 8, verses 22 through 30, where it says, I was set up from of old, from before the earth was. Where wisdom is speaking in the persona of the Torah itself. The Torah preceded all things created. In quantum physics, we know for a fact that the laws of the physical universe predate the universe itself. But they didn't catch on to that until the 20th century. Our Torah is talking about this in Proverbs chapter 8, verses 22 through 30, where wisdom says in verse 30, I was his architect. I know you're reading it in English, where the King James translator says that the word uman means nursling, but it's actually read properly as amon, architect. And we know that for a fact because we know that there was vowels introduced to the text, which changes the meaning. So when we take out those vowels, it can be either amon, architect, or uman, nursling. Why would verse 30 say, in the presence of wisdom, I was his nursling? No, I was his architect. What does an architect do when he is about to construct any edifice? He looks at what? A blueprint. What is Torah? The blueprint of creation. And it is more than just calling it laws, because laws anybody could give. It's a set of instructions which can only come from the one who designed it.